Tesla CEO Elon Musk says he voted for Miraflores in Texas. Everyone may remember, right? He now has that as his residency. He said it's the first time that he has voted for a Republican. And then today he responded to someone on Twitter saying he's now leaning towards the Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for president in 2024. Ron DeSantis came out and responded to that today. Here he is.
Elon Musk. So what I would say, I'm focused on 2022, but with Elon Musk, what I would say is, I welcome support from African Americans. What can I say?
2024. Trump or DeSantis?
Mr. Reagan.
So over the past few months, I've noticed something a bit strange on the Twitter. People have been talking about DeSantis for president in 2024. Now, people have been throwing his name around for quite a while because of the impressive way he handled himself during the COVID pandemic. But at first, he was a name that was uttered with a caveat: if Trump doesn't run, or maybe after Trump's second term. But more recently, the name DeSantis has been spoken without any caveats. In fact, many conservatives are now saying that they want DeSantis over Trump. Even if Trump is ready to go in 2024, they would rather have DeSantis. And this movement is growing. In fact, I conducted a poll on Twitter, and I recently went to the Gold Coast Country Music Festival, which doubled as a conservative political event, and I spoke with some Republican voters about this. And quite honestly, what I discovered shocked me. I'll get into that, and I will give you my own opinion on all of this in one moment. First, I have to sell you something. Over the years, you've probably tried different investments in stocks and mutual funds. You know they can be up and down all over the place. But with inflation running at 8.5%, its highest rate in 40 years, do you really need that kind of uncertainty? Being able to sleep at night knowing your investments aren't about to crash, well, that is worth its weight in gold. And speaking of gold, if you've been jumping from one investment to the next, the gold IRA with Noble Gold is perfect. With gold, you shield your gains from taxes. You keep the real value of your wealth. You own a global asset, something tangible, and you protect your wealth against economic crashes. What is not to like? And this month, for every cash deal above $20K, you'll get an incredible 3-ounce silver American Virtue coin completely free as a thank you. You can't go wrong with Noble Gold. Call 877-646-5347 right now to find out more, or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com.
On Twitter, a lot of people are debating whether we should support Donald Trump or whether we should support Governor DeSantis. What is your thoughts on this?
Donald Trump, 100%. DeSantis is young. There's time ahead of him. I think this country needs another good dose of Donald Trump for 4 more years, for sure.
But you're not anti-DeSantis.
Not at all. Not at all. I think DeSantis is doing a superlative job there in Florida, demonstrating what government can do when you are correctly organized and constitutionally performing.
Who do you think should be running in 2024? Should it be Trump or Ron DeSantis?
I'd rather see DeSantis.
Really?
I don't know. I mean, listen, I have no problem with Trump. But again, I'm not triggered by him. Everybody gets triggered emotionally by him. And I just don't see a way. At some point, you have to quell the storm to have the discussion.
That's the argument.
And I don't even know if Ron DeSantis is going to be any better at doing it. I love him because he says the truth. I love the truth. That's what I'm always seeking, is truth, even when it's so uncomfortable.
I feel like he hasn't finished the job. And here's the thing. We say that the left hates Trump, but they didn't hate Trump before he ran.
Oh, no. They hate what he stood for. No, absolutely.
And they will turn DeSantis into Trump.
The same thing, exactly. It doesn't really matter who it is at this point. But I don't know, DeSantis knows politics a little bit better. He's been in that position. You kind of got to play the game. You got to get into the ring, because if you're not and you don't know how to do it,
you will get caught off guard. But I will say that they used a lot of dirty tricks on Trump that I haven't even really seen before.
It's just amazing what you will do, what hate will lead someone to do. So.
Absolutely. Do we think we need DeSantis to run, or do we think we need Donald Trump to run again?
I would want DeSantis to run, but I understand why strategically he will not, and probably Donald will run. I actually like them both almost equally, because they're almost made out of the same cloth. If he runs, we will concede Florida with huge number of electoral votes. That's why Trump probably will run, and he already broadcasting that he will, and he probably win. But after that, DeSantis probably will run. By keeping him there, we will keep all our electoral votes from Florida, more likely, and then his time will come. Trump already done it. He had a little bit of experience. He knows how to deal with them. I'm not saying DeSantis doesn't, but he's been on international stage. He's got certain relationship. It'll be good for him to go and DeSantis be after him. Maybe even if he names him as a VP, probably be a good thing. But I think would be a better ticket, in my opinion, would be Trump and Mike Pompeo. Would be awesome. And then he holds the Florida for us. And then when his time comes, I'll put my 100% support behind him.
I believe Trump deserves a second term because he produced results.
I'm right there with you, my friend.
Bottom line, you know, he deserves to be put back in there because he produced results.
I would put it this way. He's a proven asset.
Yeah, that's the same way of putting it, yeah.
President Donald J. Trump. He gave us the best economy. He was a true patriot. He stood for the American people. He not only brought jobs back, he gave us hope.
I am definitely for Ron DeSantis. Wow. I think it's time to move on from Trump. I think he did some amazing stuff. I put the concept of COVID stand as my #1 issue, and Trump failed us on COVID stand. I think Trump should stop promoting it. I think it's time to move on to somebody who will actually fight it, and Trump is not fighting it.
Should it be Trump or should it be Ron DeSantis?
I think at this point right now, it will be DeSantis. Trump was so solid on his platform, his 4 years of his administration. But my deal breaker is vaccines.
I would like to see Ron DeSantis. So I appreciate what Trump did. However, DeSantis' leadership was just completely strong, solid, consistent, and he seems to be making his decisions based on common sense, reality, science, especially I'm aware of the vaccine issue mostly. And he has been clear from the get-go. I remember in the early years of COVID, before knowing what it was going to turn into, just seeing DeSantis on TV at the very beginning where he was not shutting down, but he was having so much common sense. And I didn't know anything, I wasn't politically savvy as much. I was like, common sense, that makes sense. Trump has flip-flopped with the vaccine issue, and he's compromised it, which makes no sense to me, given he's so smart, and he knows his base, and his base is not happy with that. So I don't understand that one. It's confusing. Whereas DeSantis, everything I've seen him say has not been confusing, has been consistent. He's course-corrected and apologized if he's actually been wrong. I haven't even seen anything that he's done that's not solid.
Now, I'm not going to play every interview that I conducted, but you get the idea. By my estimate, about 60% of the people that I spoke with at this event, 60, told me that they wanted Ron DeSantis as the Republican nominee for president in 2024. I then conducted a Twitter poll, and I discovered that those who follow me on Twitter are split in almost exactly the same numbers, about 60-40 in favor of DeSantis. I find this astonishing. Trump was such a great president. How is it that so many conservatives are turning against him? Now, a lot of people presented me with this reasoning. Trump has been very divisive. The left hates him, and they'll do everything in their power to keep him out of office, legal or illegal. They believe that we have very little chance of winning if Trump runs, but if DeSantis runs, well, we may have a shot. Now, this kind of makes sense, but if you think back, Democrat voters didn't actually hate Trump until he ran for president as a Republican. After that, they threw everything they had at him. They called him racist, misogynist, homophobic, xenophobic. They called him a white supremacist, and later they said that he stole the 2016 election by colluding with the Russians. And then, of course, they impeached him for asking the Ukrainian president about Joe Biden's corruption. I mean, every attack on Trump occurred after he announced that he was running for president. DeSantis hasn't even announced he's running, and the left already hates him. Can you imagine how hard they're going to go after him if he does run? DeSantis will just become the next Trump. The left will demonize him with lies and propaganda, probably even worse than anything they ever did to Donald Trump. And I'd also like to point out that Ron DeSantis is not a billionaire. He's a lot more vulnerable to leftist blackmail and threats than Trump is. Now, I'm not saying that he'd submit to such things, but he is much more vulnerable to them. So I'm still a Trump guy. In fact, I am still very enthusiastically a Trump guy. Now, that's not to say that I don't like DeSantis. I would love to see him take over in 2028. But for 2024, I do think we need Donald Trump again. Now, let's not forget that before Trump, nobody was even talking about the deep state. And very few people were talking about China. Trump supercharged the economy and deregulated more than any other president in history. Now, a lot of people say that he could have done more. And yeah, of course, one can always do more. If Trump single-handedly built the first rocket to successfully take astronauts to Mars, some would criticize him for not successfully colonizing every planet. But what was accomplished during his presidency was a huge step forward. In 4 short years, light was cast over many of the dark shadows in D.C., exposing a lot of the corruption. 4 more years would surely have cast even more light over more shadows and exposed even more corruption. And at the same time, I would bet that Trump will fix a lot of the damage done by Joe Biden's policies. So to me, this is a no-brainer. Trump 2024, DeSantis 2028, and 2032. But there is another concern on the minds of many Republican voters, and that is Trump's position on the vaccines. Now, I have not been injected with the COVID vaccines myself, but I've also not bought into the idea that the vaccines are part of some kind of sinister depopulation plan. And honestly, I don't think that Trump's support of the vaccine should come as a great surprise to anyone. His Project Warp Speed is what brought us the vaccines so quickly. He considers this a great accomplishment, and Trump has a massive ego. If he does something that he perceives as an accomplishment, he's going to brag about it. That's how he has always been. It's this acerbic aspect of his character that we conservatives have always tolerated because of his brilliance. It's ridiculous that we would now suddenly find it intolerable because he's not joining other conservatives in denouncing a set of vaccines that he helped supply to the world. We've always tolerated Trump's infidelity, his brutish language, his arrogance, and his other ugly qualities. We've even reveled in them as they've infuriated the left. So to suddenly turn against him for this vaccine issue, it seems absurd to me. Trump is not a deep state guy. He exposed the deep state. But that said, for those of you who find this particularly issue to be disqualifying, I can understand the shift to DeSantis. I don't agree with you, but I understand you. Now, we've got a long way to go until 2024, and a lot can change between now and then. So who knows who we're going to be supporting then. But I'm still a Trump supporter. And although I really do like DeSantis, and I wouldn't be sad to see him in the White House, I would love to see another 4 years of Donald Trump. Feel free to criticize me in the comments below. I look forward to reading them. Well, that's it for me. And remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's just that they know so much. That is not so. Good night.
Do you believe that Joe Biden is going to make it to 2024?
Well, Stalin or Lenin was on display for many, many decades. It's a thing that comes to mind.
So he'll be in D.C.
He might be.
He'll be in D.C. somewhere.
The trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. Now,
President, in talking about the continuing recession tonight, you blame mistakes of the past, and you blame the Congress. Does any of the blame belong to you?
yes, because for many years I was a Democrat.